China reopens its embassy in Nicaragua as both nations look forward to closer friendship and cooperation. "2021 closes with more than twice the number of COVID-19 cases reported in 2020. The world's largest free trade agreement, signed by 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, enters into force. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your host, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. China looks forward to closer friendship and cooperation with Nicaragua after the reopening of the Chinese embassy in Managua. On Friday, the Chinese embassy in Nicaragua held a solemn reopening ceremony with attendance of all Chinese diplomats dispatched to Nicaragua, Nicaraguan government officials, VIPs from various sectors in the country, representatives of local Chinese institutions and communities, as well as representatives of foreign missions in Nicaragua. The resumption of diplomatic ties between China and Nicaragua serves the fundamental and long-term interest of both sides and is welcomed and supported by the two peoples. In Colombia, the government adjusts fuel prices upwards as of January 1st. According to the authorities of the Ministry of Mines, the adjustment was made by including items of the tariff for transportation by polyducts, land transportations, and marking tariffs. Prices vary among the different cities in the country. However, the average cost is 9,048 pesos per gallon of gasoline, $2.2, and 8,884 pesos, $1.94 per gallon of diesel. According to data published by the Bloomberg agency, Colombia ranks 14th among the group of 61 countries analyzed with the most expensive gasoline in Latin America, since for an average income level of $19 a day, 16.8% of a day's salary must be spent to buy a gallon of fuel. In Argentina, the Fernandez administration awarded 141 housing units of the urban development plan Estación Buenos Aires to families who will live in the neighborhood of Parque Patricios in the capital of the South American country. See the details in the following report. By means of a general draw and through a co-management process with the General Labor Confederation and the Argentinian Workers' Union.
In the month of February, we are reaching the 40,000 home, and we are building throughout the whole of Argentina with different programs and land provided by unions. 100,000 houses simultaneously in February. So this is the Argentina we are starting to dream about. An Argentina with three key slogans: to fulfill your dreams, to generate jobs, and to provide predictability.
For the Fernandez administration, it is essential that the financial system no longer determines whether an Argentinian has a home or not.
In the times we live in, having a house is a right that any human being deserves, and the state must do what is necessary to facilitate access to housing for all those who need it. That is why we are here determined, as well as our Minister Jorge, to advance steadily, at a constant pace, to put all the strength we have to put into it. Many Argentinians are in need of these houses, and believe me, there is nothing more gratifying than the moment you hand over the keys to someone who will have for her entire family, her house, her roof.
The dream of owning their own home, which in the case became a reality in the Buenos Aires neighborhood of Parque Patricios for 141 families. This is a great achievement that I thought it will never happen, and I still can't believe it. The day we came to meet him, I walked in and cried, and I couldn't believe that this is my new place.
It is a joy, an emotion, because you are having your house, right? Not that you are always paying the rent, but it is never your house, and this is your house, so there is a little more happiness in the family.
This house is going to be in my name. For women, it is sometimes very difficult to acquire their own home. It is always a little more difficult for us, isn't it? To be able to have a house to live to my children, and in particular to my daughter. It is very meaningful to me because that is what it is. It is autonomy, it is independence, it is love, it is a house to rest in. Another promise fulfilled by the government of the Frente de Todos to solve the housing problems suffered by the most vulnerable sectors of Argentina.
Carolina Silvestre, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Thank you, Carolina, for this report, and now we continue. In Cuba, this January 1st, the country commemorates the 63rd anniversary of the triumph of the revolution, considered one of the most influential models of resistance and social struggle in Latin America and the world. The Cuban Revolution achieved on January 1st, 1959, the fall of the dictator Fulgencio Batista's regime and the coming to power of the leader of the rebel army, Fidel Castro Ruz. The Cuban process transformed the dependence on the United States and made possible the beginning of enormous changes in the life of people and also of the nation in a very difficult stage, but of new combats, challenges, and difficulties. Since the triumph of the revolution, the United States has continually tried to undermine the socialist government, but the determination of the Cuban people has prevented it. Several heads of state and prominent Latin political figures sent their congratulations to the Cuban people and government to mark the 63rd anniversary of the Cuban Revolution on January 1st. Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated and honored the 63rd anniversary of the Cuban Revolution by sending a message to President Díaz-Canel. The Russian president extended his greetings to the Army General Raúl Castro and highlighted that Havana and Moscow are working in the implementation of bilateral projects who call it as promising in the economic, scientific, commercial, and technical and humanitarian sectors. The president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, took to Twitter to congratulate the Cuban people and wrote, "On the 63rd anniversary of the Cuban Revolution, we salute the heroic people of Commander Fidel. We remember the sacrifices and struggles of the burdened men. Cuba, the brave island, continues to give lessons in humanism, dignity, and strength." The General Secretary of the Bolivarian Alternative for the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty, ALBA TCP, Sasha Laurenti, also tweeted, "January the 1st is the day of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, and thanks to its example, it is also the day of the dignity of the peoples and the world and of solidarity. Congratulations to the people and government of Cuba." The president of Bolivia, Luis Arce Catacora, also expressed on his Twitter account, "From Bolivia, we send a big hug to the President Miguel Díaz-Canel and our brother, the Cuban people, for the 63rd anniversary of the triumph of the revolution. We express our admiration for their scientific, social, and cultural advances, which are an example to the world." And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The year 2021 closes with a number of 198 million confirmed cases of COVID-19, meaning more than twice the figure reported in 2020, which was 83 million. According to data from the World Health Organization, 3.5 million people died in 2021, 84% more than the 1.9 million deaths in 2020. The figures, while still very high, show a decline in coronavirus-related fatalities, which was 2.2% in 2020 and 1.7% in 2021. It is also expected that the progress of vaccination and the lower death rate showed by the Omicron variant will be reflected in a reduction of cases and also fatalities during 2022. This could mark the end of the acute stage of the pandemic, into the words of WHO Director Tedros Adhanom. In Argentina, this Saturday, the mandatory health pass with a complete anti-COVID vaccination schedule came into force and will be asked at mass events. In the midst of the rise in the statistic of new infections, the measure applies to all citizens over 13 years of age who engage in activities predefined as high epidemiological risk, such as attending bars and nightclubs, group trips, or events with more than 1,000 people. In the last week of 2021, the nation registered more than 50,000 new cases in a single day, the highest number since the beginning of the pandemic. According to official figures, 65.5% of Argentinians are fully vaccinated. South Africa overcomes the peak of the COVID-19 wave of the Omicron variant without a significant increase in deaths. South Africa, the country where the new variant of COVID-19 was detected in November, announced on Thursday night that it had overcome the peak caused by Omicron without noticing a significant increase in the number of fatalities. In view of the improvement in the health situation, the presidency reported the lifting of restrictions, such as the night curfew, in force for 21 months on the eve of the New Year's celebrations. In the last week, the new infections dropped by almost 30% compared to the previous week, while hospital admissions decreased in 8 of the 9 provinces. The government of India announced that it sent a new shipment of anti-COVID-19 vaccines this Saturday in solidarity with the people of Afghanistan. The shipment of 500,000 vaccines is part of a humanitarian aid program aimed at mitigating the effects of the crisis that the Central Asian nation is going through after 20 years of war imposed by the United States. New Delhi informed that in the coming weeks it will send another 500,000 vaccines, cereals and essential medicines to Kabul in coordination with United Nations agencies. Ukraine banned ships sailing under the Russian flag from entering its waters, according to a new law that came into force this Saturday, January 1st. The ban also applies to ships belonging to Russian citizens or economic agents registered in Russia or pertaining to natural or legal persons subject to special economic sanctions under the Ukrainian law. Relations between Moscow and Kiev began to deteriorate after the so-called Orange Revolution of 2004, when authorities in Ukraine decided to join the NATO agreement. With the arrival of Viktor Yanukovych, Ukraine sought better terms with Russia. 4 years later, he was defeated, causing the separation of the Crimea Peninsula and an internal armed conflict that reaches today. The Ukrainian authorities have accused Russia of meddling in their country's internal affairs, but Russia rejects such accusations and wishes that Kiev overcome that economic and political crisis. This Saturday, new post-Brexit custom rules for goods arriving from the European Union to Britain are taking effect. A leading food industry body has warned that the new border controls could lead to food shortages. Beginning on January 1st, importers must make a full customs declaration on goods entering the UK from the EU or other countries. Businesses will no longer be allowed to delay completing full import customs declarations for up to 175 days, a measure that was introduced to cope with the disruption of the Brexit. The new measures require businesses to complete the correct paperwork at least 4 hours before goods can arrive at the UK borders, or they risk being turned back at the border. Animal and plant-based products must also have statements of origin certificates. Northern Ireland and Ireland are exempt from these changes as political leaders continue negotiating the Northern Ireland Protocol. This Saturday, 446 asylum seekers arrived at a port in southern Italy after being rescued by an European NGO. Several of the asylum seekers had been previously evacuated for humanitarian reasons, since they require medical attention. The German organization Sea-Watch, responsible for the initiative, explained that the rescue was carried out in 5 different maneuvers during the last week, and this Saturday, finally, they received authorization for the Italian authorities to disembark. According to the United Nations, 66,000 refugees arrived in Italy by sea from Africa and the Middle East in 2021. Pope Francis used this New Year's message on Saturday to issue a call for an end to violence against women, saying it was insulting to God. Pope Francis was speaking at the New Year's Day Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, dedicated to the Holy Mary. The pontiff presided over the Mass and blessed the statue of the baby Jesus. The Mass homily was focused on the role of the Holy Mary as the woman and the mother after the birth of Jesus Christ. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began nearly 2 years ago, Francis has several times spoken out against domestic violence, which has increased in many countries since lockdowns left many women trapped with their abusers.
How much violence there is against women. Enough. To hurt a woman is to outrage God, who created humanity from a woman.
Europe marks 20 years since the introduction of its community currency this Saturday. The euro began to circulate among the citizens of Europe and the world on January 1, 2002. The project was devised in the 70s as a tool for the integration of the European bloc, inhabited by 340 million people, and according to the financial institutions, it is a consolidated and representative currency of the continent. Bulgaria, Croatia, and Romania are expected to adopt the euro as their national currencies in the next few years. European authorities announced that they are working on the launch of a digital euro to ensure the future of the continent in the new times. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The world's largest free trade agreement, signed by 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, entered into force on January 1, 2022. After more than a decade of negotiations, the China-led mega-treaty, known as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, entered into force. The treaty is effective this Saturday in Australia, Brunei, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos, New Zealand, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. On February 1st, South Korea will join, and it's still to be ratified in Myanmar, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. The RCEP addresses trade in goods and services, the digital economy, intellectual property, and trade disputes, among other issues. The Ministry of Commerce of China welcomed the entry into force of the treaty and stated that it will help boost trade between China and other member countries of the initiative.
The RCEP will also boost investment, growth for regional trade, optimize regional division of labor and cooperation, and strengthen regional industrial chains and supply chains. It will play a significant role in stabilizing foreign trade and investment in China.
And in the midst of the global race to dominate the technology and innovation sector, China unveiled a new plan to boost the spheres of robotics and smart manufacturing with the aim of reaching or surpassing international levels in the development and innovation of key robotic technologies, and to double the presence of robots in manufacturing in the next 3 years. The country is betting on the use of robots to consolidate its economic rises by 2025. According to a new plan published by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the Asian country aims to reach international standards in the development and innovation of key robotic technologies and to double the presence of robots in manufacturing in the next 3 years. While China's abundance of labor has offered comparative advantages over the past decades, Beijing does not want to be left behind in what some are calling the fourth industrial revolution, led by robots and the advance of artificial intelligence.
Innovation, robotics, and smart manufacturing will be key to China in the coming years. At present, we have built 21 innovation centers and 203 innovation provinces dedicated to effectively upgrading industrial and factory systems and increasing the supply capacity of technologies in key areas.
The strategy comes at a time when countries such as the United States, Germany and Japan are also pushing to boost smart manufacturing and achieve leading positions in a sector that is set to dominate in the future. With this project, China wants more than 70% of its large enterprises to be fully digitized by 2025, and the value added of industries in the digital economy to be 10% of the national GDP, compared to 7.8% today. The plan also promises to strengthen research on key technologies such as artificial intelligence, 5G, big data, among others, areas where China has comparative advantages over other world powers. China is already one of the world's hub for robotic manufacturing and innovation, but authorities hope that the Asian giant will also be able to lead in the creation of patents and innovation with its own technologies, breaking its dependence on the West and bringing technology to new areas of society. Now we move on to other topics. The government of Indonesia banned coal exports to preserve its electricity supply. According to authorities of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, the decision will be re-evaluated by the government after January 5th and comes amidst high demand for electricity in the country. This could lead to widespread power outages in power plants and road supply. The measure will prevent the shutdown of around 20 power plants, supplying a total of 10.9 gigawatts of electricity. Indonesia is the world's leading exporter of coal, having exported nearly 30 million tons of the fuel by January 2021. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.